Shanti, brother.
Om Shanti. Welcome all of you. And before we begin, we'll just spend a minute in silence and invoke the presence of the Supreme Being for the episode. So, welcome all of you to the episode 35 on cleanliness. In Hindi, we call it Swachhata. So, you'd be wondering why we chose this value on this day. So, as all of you are aware, we just finished Holi yesterday. The beautiful significance which we understood today from Sister Sapna in the morning India time, 12 hours ago. And Holi is trying to be something related to the inner purity. And cleanliness, though it sounds on a very physical level the value, but it's all about truth, integrity, purity of the mind, which I'm sure Brother Ken would be covering in detail today. And also, I would like to give you a background that Brother Ken has been with us on this journey since almost 1 year and 6 months, 1.5 years. He had covered in last year, February, on love, beautiful value, then honesty last in October, and again now today. So every 6 monthly he is with us. And also, I'm sure you had felt his presence. He made his presence felt actually when we celebrated the first anniversary of the Values for Life series episodes, which was also in October last year. So with this little bit of background and why we chose this value of cleanliness today, I would now like to request Sister Claudia from Vancouver to please welcome Brother Ken. Over to you, Sister Claudia.
Om Shanti, good morning for us, good evening for you, good afternoon for some of you. Welcome, Ken, to this program. We really like to hear you talk about cleanness because you are the perfect one to talk to us about that. We all feel that you have such a clean heart. That's why we like to be around you, because it's such a clean heart that comes always with the right things for us. So I choose a flower because here we are in the spring, and the spring brings, this first one flowers brings the tulips. So I brought this for you to plant on at the Serra Negra. So I know there is fall, but still the bulbs, we plant the bulbs at the fall time, on the autumn. So then the flowers comes on the spring. So I thought this is like so white, so clean, like your heart. So we want to know what we should do to have a heart like yours. Thank you for welcome.
Thank you, Claudia, sister. And we are all eagerly awaiting Brother Ken's talk, I know, but I'll take a few more minutes, brother, before I pass it on to you. We don't need to introduce Brother Ken because all of us know about him. But since it's been 6 months and quite a few new people join all the time, so you all would be amazed to know that he's one of the first Western students of Brahma Kumaris since the early 1970s, one of the first students of Dadi Janki. And after that, it's almost 50 years now, and he has been authoring almost 18 books on leadership and personal and organizational development. and also self-development. And I would also like to mention that the SML course, the self-management leadership, he was one of the pioneers of establishing that course, which was really conducted in a very big way in all the big cities of India. He works as an international consultant in many organizations, and basically for strategic management and leadership development. And I don't. This goes without saying that he is the regional coordinator for the Brahma Kumaris for South America and all those areas. That's his service area, I must say. And as always, a few lines on Brother Ken, followed by a few lines on cleanliness. So, through Brother's talks, he touches the philosophy that's very, very deep, because it's his mantra: what you sow, so shall you reap. I can now gallop and take a step forward to leap. Knowing myself as this beautiful energy indeed is very, very cheap, which means it doesn't need money to know that. I have now rose from the darkness and the deep sleep to remove the dust from the mind by having a clean sweep. And it resonates very well with what Sister Claudia said. Brother has a very honest heart and a very clean mind, or a clean heart. It all overlaps. So the poem on cleanliness today is: today Brother shall give us tips on how to keep our mind clean so that the burden is lifted, which makes us feel slim and lean. The soul can now then radiate the beautiful sparkle as a sheen. Everyone says it's so unique, this light we have never seen. Because now I'm connected to the Almighty, who's the world's Dean, authority I mean, who helps me rise above all the clash and chaos present in the outside scene, which all of us are witnessing. So with this, I'll just again, before again going to him, you can click on the interpretation icon. You can select whichever language you want to listen to. And again, as usual, the format is the first almost 1 hour, 55 minutes will be the talk by Brother. And then 15 minutes we'll be having question answer session with him. So please feel free to send in your questions, not to everyone because that disturbs the speaker. You can just send it to me directly. You can see my name in the co-host. And finally, the last 15 minutes, the meditation. So with all this, I would now request Brother Ken to carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you especially for the translators. Though we often don't remember them, but they are absolutely essential. So to every one of the translators, our best feelings and good wishes, because you're doing a great service. And I'll try to speak slowly so that you won't have problems with my Australian accent. The topic of cleanliness is not a usual one when you think about a list of values. You normally think about tolerance and patience and love and compassion and so on. So that's probably why it's number 35 on our list. But even so, there's an expression in English that cleanliness is next to godliness. I don't know if that goes into other languages, but cleanliness is next to godliness. It means that it's such a quality that's next to God. And of course, we need to have a clean mind and a clean heart in order to operate in this quite dirty world, you could say. Dirty in many ways. Even yesterday, for example, I was reading our morning class to Latin America, the Central America, Mexico, and so on. And in the questions and answers, one of the people asked, I was telling them about the good feelings, the program that we have online for yoga, to send powerful vibrations to Ukraine. And it's like 24 hours a day. It's online. The link, it was probably easy to find. But all of our centers throughout the world are sending our best thoughts to Ukraine at the moment. And one sister asked, but why don't we send good thoughts to Russia also? Because whatever's happening, it's between the military class and the politicians, and it's not really the great population. So the Russians are suffering also because of all of these sanctions. So let's send also good wishes to not only to Ukraine, but to Russia. And why not send good feelings to Vladimir Putin, because everyone's thinking he's such a terrible character. But what we need to do is to touch the purity that's there, and it's in the heart of every single individual, even though it's very, very deep in many people. In this case, of course, very much out of touch with his inner core of good qualities. But we believe that every single human being, the worst and the best, have an inner core that is pure and clean, and that it's for some reason or the other, especially through the illusion that the soul is the body, that we call body consciousness, this inner core of pure and powerful qualities, which have become inaccessible for people, is there, but is buried. So whenever we think of anyone, we should first of all think of that in them. And no matter who they are, no matter what they're doing, they also have this inner spark. However diminished it is, and however much it has become darkened, it's still there, flickering away. And we have to send our very best, strongest wishes that spark of purity and truth somehow wakes up, and people, whoever they are, you can think about most countries, the leader of the country is not a very popular figure. So we should send our good wishes to all of our leaders, because otherwise they become ostracized, they become thrown to the side and marginalized, when what they need is the power of truth. What they need is the light of the power of truth to wake up that spark that's in them. And so that's the first thought I was thinking, if we want to keep good feelings, we have to keep good feelings to everyone. We shouldn't discriminate. So while we're sending our good feelings to the people of the Ukraine, who must be suffering tremendously, we also should send the people, the poor people in Russia with all of these sanctions. They're just going to suffer so much also. So really send our good wishes to all sides, especially to the military class and the political class, who are creating all of this craziness. Anyway, I was thinking to start off, I don't know how many of you know the meaning of the word ecology, even the word economy. It's such a big thing these days. Both of those words are very much in our dictionaries, translated, even sometimes not even translated. We use the word ecology and economy pretty much as they are. But I don't know how many of you know that this word eco, which is in ecology and economy, is from Greek. It means house. It means house. So ecology would be the study of the house. And then I'll explain what house it is in a moment. And economy, I don't know how many economists even know this. Economy means to look after the house, to manage the house, to care for the house. So both of these things have become, I guess, bargaining pieces on the political table. Mostly everything that happens is due to the economy. But how many economists, and even those who are running economies, know that it actually means looking after the house? So ecology is studying the house, and economy is to look after it, to care for it, to manage it. So how many houses do we have? And then we can look at what sort of cleanliness we need in each of the houses. The first house, and that's probably where most people's thinking stop, is nature, the environment. That's our first house. We live in the natural world. We use resources from the natural world. If we didn't have a good natural surrounding that has enough light, enough heat, enough water, and enough air of a good quality, then we would be suffering so much. So, for a very good reason, people are concerned about the state of our natural world. I don't know how many of you know, but the atmosphere is just a very thin layer around the Earth. It's about 22 kilometers thick. And of course, as you go up, you can't breathe after, say, 5,000 meters, even, which is 5 kilometers, you start not to be able to breathe because the air is too thin. So it's a very thin and very sensitive layer, which is called also the biosphere. It's not just the atmosphere, it's the biosphere in which life thrives. And there's no new atmosphere. That's it. Relative to the Earth, it's the same as the thickness of the skin of an apple is to the apple. That's how thick the atmosphere is. It's just the skin of the apple. Very, very thin. And there's no other. We can't change the atmosphere of the world. We can't change the stratosphere, the biosphere. We can't change it. So what are we doing? We're just making it dirtier and dirtier by, all of the noxious gases and greenhouse gases that we send into it. And at the same time, we're chopping down the trees, which could somehow save us. They could change the excess of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere into oxygen again. So at the same time we're sending all of these pollutants into the atmosphere, we're also chopping down the trees. So this isn't exactly looking after our house, is it? It's actually making our house dirtier. And there is a connection between our mental pollution, all of the rubbish that we keep inside of our heads, and the rubbish that we put out into the world. And now if you ask any individual who is responsible for the state of the atmosphere, you would have to say every single human being. Every single human being is contributing to the pollution one way or the other, sometimes more, sometimes less. So even using the products that we use and all of the things that we discard, throw away. We live in a throwaway civilization where the rubbish just builds up. Even the most pristine islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean have incredible amounts of plastic, microplastic in the water. So we're also polluting our water, we're polluting our air, we're polluting our bodies as well. So the first thought that comes to me, if I'm thinking about cleaning up, right? How can we as human beings be better stewards, better guardians, better trustees of this world? Because at the moment, if you look at the word plague, if you define it as something that just takes over and wipes out everything, human beings have become a plague for our earth in a way. How many systems are we spoiling at the moment? I think I saw a report. There are all of these major indicators of pollution about, like, for example, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the desertification, the global warming, the melting of the polar caps and things like that. Some of them, I think there are 10 or 12 such major indicators, and I think on 5 or 6 of them, we've already gone beyond repair. We can't repair it anymore. So if each of us, and of course everyone knows the government is responsible, no, every single one of us, the way that I interact with nature can be from a very clean perspective, and let me use as less resources that I can manage, and let me put back into the world something good by the way I think, the way I speak, the way I act. So that's the first thought. The second house, let's say, is our house, right, where we live. Our apartment or bungalow or whatever you call it. There we also have to keep the house clean. We have to keep and it's not just clean house, it has to be a clean atmosphere. I mean, I know people have everything absolutely polished and sparkling clean, but they fight all the time. They have heavy thoughts, they have bad feelings. So they have a clean physical space, but they don't have a clean atmosphere in the house. The place where we live should be peaceful, and that indicates a clean atmosphere. There's nothing, some people are so impetuous and so they lose their temper so quickly. Even though everything's sparkling, they shout, they lose their mind, they say really bad things to others. And of course, as they say, anger dries up the pots, right? Dries up the flower vases. And so we have to keep our houses clean, not just physically, but spiritually. Even if we can institute a sort of a peace zone in the house where people meditate or people come together and talk about deeper things. The third house is our physical body. So I'm a good ecologist and a good economist, I'm studying it, I'm looking after it. You look at the body, of course, we have to keep it clean. We have to, have our shower every day, and we have to make sure that everything's sparkling in terms of the body. It's not just to make us beautiful. That's not the reason. It's to avoid illness. And these days we are specifically concerned about viruses in the air. And in Brazil at the moment, even though the local governments are saying we don't need to wear masks except on public transport, the whole medical profession is up in arms saying that yes, we do, because we're not free from this terrible scourge yet. There are more and more things. Even now, Brazil has lost maybe almost 700,000 people have lost their life just in this country alone. So we have to be careful. So we've become more actually conscious of hygiene and washing our hands and things like that. Okay. But what about the food we eat? Because that's also, they say the body is like a temple. So we should put into the body the best quality food. We have a yogic diet in Brahma Kumaris, which is basically sattvic. That means that all of the ingredients are not only from the best sources, pure, but also they are prepared with vibrations in mind. Just as a physical house can be sparkling and clean, but the atmosphere can be heavy, in the same way, the food that we eat can be the most perfect and most organic and wonderful food But if it's cooked with bad feelings, so let's say that's why we don't eat in restaurants, because we can't guarantee the vibration of the cooks. Often, if you've ever been behind the scenes in a restaurant, there you see them fighting with each other, and that sort of vibration comes into the food that they prepare. So when we prepare food, we have to be in a very clean state of consciousness. And of course, the body eats the physical part. The body absorbs the physical ingredients and metabolizes the vitamins and the minerals and the proteins and so on. But the soul absorbs the vibration that's there in the food. So the food itself has to be clean and properly prepared, but it also has to be prepared in a higher state of consciousness so that the vibration is also clean. So the natural world is the first house. The house where we live, our home, is the second house. The third house is the body. The fourth house, of course, as we're getting closer and closer, it's the mind. And this is probably where everything has to be understood very deeply. Because if I don't understand the cleanliness of the mind, I won't be concerned about the real cleanliness of my body and the vibrations and the things that I take into it. I won't be concerned about the atmosphere of the place that I live. And I won't be concerned about the state of the physical world either. So I have to make these changes in myself at this level of the mind, because when that phrase I mentioned at the beginning, cleanliness is next to godliness, it's really related to the mind. And the mind has thoughts, the sort of thoughts that we have, and feelings. That's why the clean heart that people talk about is actually the clean mind. It's the clean feelings that we have about ourselves and others. And it's not easy, because all the time we're interacting with people and their defects are very, very present and very apparent. And their defects, they get mixed up with our defects, and there's a sort of a tangle between my defects and the defects of someone else, and we call that conflict. But it basically, it's the uncontrolled mind. I know Swami Vivekananda, he called the mind like a monkey, but he gave a further definition. The mind is like a monkey that's been poisoned by it's been stung by the scorpion of jealousy. It's been poisoned by the wrong sort of desires, and it's drunk on ego. So drunk, poisoned, and stung, the mind just sort of flaps around, completely uncontrolled. And it's a paradox in a way, because the intellect, that's the actual thinking, sort of active thinking capacity that we have, that we can direct our thoughts and we can direct our feelings. If the intellect is strong, then we can control these things. But if not, they just take over us. So if the intellect is bogged down in rubbish, it's become interested in things that are not clean, let's say, all sorts of activities and pursuits. I was just thinking yesterday, in fact, that as I become more and more clean, let's say, internally, I lose more and more interest in the things that used to be quite interesting for me, like cricket, for example. I don't even know who is winning these days. It doesn't concern me, because if you look at how cricket has become, or any sport in a way, it's just a huge ego game. And it's lost its magic in a way. Look at the last Olympics in the Winter Olympics in China, how it was so bland and so just ego and ego and ego. So as I become cleaner, I also start to lose interest in things that I used to have interest in. And that's good in a way, because I can keep free I'm free. I don't have any team, let's say. I don't have any favorite. Everything is okay. And everyone is okay from that clean perspective. And if we go deeper into this about the clean mind, we have these two words in Hindi, which show us the difference, and they're actually opposites. One would be elevated, and the other would be corrupt. Now, a corrupt world doesn't just mean that people take bribes, and of course that's part of it. It's just that the soul has become corrupt because instead of natural, pure virtues and powers being manifest, what happens are our worst and most our basest qualities are very, very quickly apparent. So in Hindi, the two words are shresht and brasht, and we would translate that as elevated, shresht, and brasht as corrupt. So we have the choice to become elevated or to remain corrupted, to remain polluted, to remain unclean internally, to remain in our own rubbish in a way. So it's interesting. It's a paradox, isn't it? I was thinking yesterday how the intellect gets trapped in the rubbish, and the mind becomes controlled by that rubbish. So it's not that the mind doesn't have control. The mind is being controlled by the rubbish. It should be controlled by the soul and the consciousness. So our mind should be controlled by our higher nature, by our higher perspective, by our higher consciousness. And that's why we have these, and this was part of our morning class today, Sukhdam and Dukhdam, the world of happiness and the world of sorrow. I know Dukh, especially if you go into it, it doesn't just mean sorrow. It means such sorrow that it's impossible to become happy. No matter what you do, you cannot be happy. So such sorrow. That's the whole essence of Buddhism in a way. There's suffering, there is dukkha in Pali, in dukkha in Sanskrit, dukkha in Pali. That exists in the world, and it's due to two things: our wanting, desires, and our ignorance. So the sort of desires that we have, and the sort of wanting that we have, and the sort of the darkness of ignorance go together. So as the darkness of ignorance comes down, also the quality of our living comes down as well. So in the quality of our wanting, we start to desire things that are useless. We start to base our life on things that don't last. We start to base our world on illusions, therefore. So that's the first noble truth of one of the major religions of the world. And of course, the second one is there's a way out of it, and the third and the fourth are to do with these are the things that we have to do. So if I'm aware that I'm, the true nature of sorrow, I can do something about becoming clean and clear again. If I don't understand the true nature of sorrow, I will never understand the true nature of happiness. Because in the world, the sort of happiness that is sold to us, the sort of happiness that people buy is so temporary and shallow, isn't it? Do this and you'll be happy. Eat this and you'll be happy. If you have things like this particular person, you'll be happy. And of course, we know that that's all an illusion. And so we've changed real happiness for an illusory happiness. And the problem is we don't even know the difference. That's why when we're thinking about cleaning up our minds, we have to remember that phrase, Satchitanand. Sat means truth, so I have to connect myself with what's true in people and things. Every single situation has truth behind it, has some hidden truth, so I have to connect with that. Chit would be like our memory track, what we contain inside of our consciousness in a way. And that, of course, is dirty. After many births of accumulating rubbish, our memory track has become, clogged, like a drain. Sometimes you have to clean a drain because it starts to smell bad. The sorts of things that we have in the drain of our consciousness that have been accumulated there, birth after birth, we have to do something. And of course, we can't just clean it on ourselves. We need God's power for that, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. But so if I'm connecting with truth and what is good and what is pure in people and things, then I have a chance to clean out the memory track, clean out the chit. And then I have a chance to experience Anand, which should be, say, the most pure form, the most clean form of happiness. For example, truth. I'm a soul. I am a soul. I am a child of God. Just work on that and you start to feel clean, because that's such a truth. It will start to push all of the other anti-truths or falsehoods aside. All of the things that we believe that are not true start to get pushed to the side by this powerful truth. I am a soul. I am God's child. And I start to clean out my chit with that. And just that feeling, if I go into the depth of that one thought, then I can experience what is Anand, which is the pure happiness that is not dependent on anything outside me. It's not dependent on other people if they're happy or not happy, if they're, in a bad state. If I don't hold to the truth, I can't hold my chit stable and I can't experience Anand. These days let's say I'm living, most of us have to live. I have to live with other people, or interact with other people at least. So if I keep those interactions, just those interactions, the one that I have to interact with, especially every day, or the ones that are closer, sometimes once a week even, the closest of our interactions, if I keep them at the highest level of truth possible, then I start to have a clean relationship with others. There's no exchange of rubbish. There's no exchange of sort of bad smell. They say that attachment has a bad smell. And it's probably the most illusory of all of the vices, because attachment is disguised as a sort of false happiness, isn't it? And when you see a little granddaughter, you feel, it's such a cute little thing, let me have my, Of course, I can respect children, I can have that, but that grandchild is not, it's only connected with my body. At a spiritual level, that soul is my brother, and both of us, independent of our ages, let's say the grandmother or grandfather is 70 and the grandchild is 5, as souls, there's no difference. I'm the soul, that one is the soul. Maybe that soul in the body of the grandchild has had more births than me. So I have to redefine everything if I have the right consciousness. This is Sat, right? Which and then helps the Chit. I have to have the true consciousness. And if I really understand myself as a soul, then I know automatically how I should interact with others. That's the first condition. I'm a soul, the other one is a soul. And then there, of course, the responsibilities that are related to the body, but that's the first consciousness. And I can therefore, if I keep that highest consciousness and I keep my chit clean, then I can experience that anand, that pure and clean happiness, the highest form of happiness. So then we look at the way that we interact internally. It's not just the mind, as I said, it's the intellect, but especially it's the sanskars. Because these three qualities that permeate our existence, not only internally as a historical thing. There was a time when we were all Sattva Pradhan, and then we became Sattva, then Raju Pradhan, then Tamo, and now Tamo Pradhan. So there's a graduation of the qualities in us. So historically, we have all of those things. But at this particular moment, which quality am I? And I would say that for most of us, we're a mess, a different type of mess, some less messy, some more messy, some almost clean, some still quite dirty. But that subconscious mess is actually the mixture of our sanskars, some of which are sattva, some of which is raja, some of which are tamo. And then they sort of keep on interacting. Now, when I go into a state of yoga, what happens is those sanskars, those qualities, those internal traits that are more sattva, which are more pure and clean and truthful, and I go into a state of connection with God, those qualities come to the surface of me, and they start to take over my conscious perspective. Whereas if I don't have that connection with God, I'm connected with the world, and what is the world is just a big mess. So you can see in the world, and you can see in every single person, this mixture of sattva, raja, and tamo. But especially you can see tamo more than anything. Sometimes raja, which means middling. It's a sort of a quality of movement. Sat means light. Sattva, or the sattva part would be lightness, purity, light, cleanliness, the highest quality. Raj would be movement and dynamics, and you could say a bit of tension there. And tamo is defined as that which is our densest quality in our let's say, dirtiest state, impure. So we're a mixture of all of those things. So if I'm connected with other people, and there's tamo is in the front, if I'm watching, for example, Netflix, which is one tamo scene after another, what do you think, which sanskars will be being cultivated? What sanskars will be being cultivated if I keep my attention on stories and soap operas and movies and, which are basically, if the movie's not about anger, lust, greed, ego, and attachment, nobody goes. You don't see movies about pure sattvic qualities. It wouldn't be very popular. It would be a flop, and people would want their money back. And it's funny, you know, if you watch a film or you read a book, you want the hero to win, and in doing that, want him to destroy his enemies, and you feel happy if he gets through and jumps on the bad guy. Actually, a spiritual person will have mercy for the hero and also for the bad guy who gets jumped on. So what is influencing me? Is my subconscious mess influencing the way that I live, or is it something higher that's influencing me? And how can I become true and pure and clean anyway? I can't do it, as I said before, as my own effort. I can't do it. I can't do it. You know, I was thinking that some of the qualities or attributes of God are very specific. And I have to, in meditation, in Raj Yoga, what we do is I become the soul. I leave the consciousness of the body, even temporarily. The world won't fall apart while I'm gone for 5-10 minutes. Everything can continue doing what it does, but I can take leave for 5-10 minutes and go beyond. So I go beyond all of my connections. I go beyond all of these relationships. I go beyond my story, whatever I've been doing, even the story of my life. You know, that's a story. It's not me. I go beyond the roles that I have, because I'm not the roles, I'm the actor. And I go beyond the body itself because I'm the soul. I give life to the body. I'm not the body. When I leave the body, it dies and goes back to the dust. So I'm not dust. I'm a spiritual energy. And I go beyond that. But where do I go when I go beyond? So there's a dimension beyond the physical world, the physical one, which is the dimension that people remember when they pray. You know, it's the heaven of the Christians or the Muslims. It's the nirvana or the Buddhists, the place beyond sound. It's the Shantidam of the Hindus. It's my home, but my real home. And if we go back to the beginning, ecology and economy, the real home of the soul that I have to study and I have to look after is that one. It's the home that I have and I share with God. So how many of us are looking after that home and that atmosphere, that connection, that relationship? So I go to that one who's the source of all of these qualities. And you know, one of the titles of God that I particularly like, and it's connected with this talk, is Pavitra Kasaga, the ocean of purity. So I go, and in front of me is the one who is remembered by all of the traditions, the one that we call God or Allah or Shiva or Jehovah or Eloha, Elohim, the great in Africa, or the great spirit in the American Indian traditions. That one, I go to that one, and it's like he's like a spiritual sun, not bright and hot like the physical one, but very subtle, but radiating these qualities. And I go to him with that in mind. This one is the ocean of purity. So I have to be purified. He's the purifier. Patipavan. He's the purifier. So if we call out to the purifier, it means we're not pure, right? It's funny how people can't understand that. If they're saying Patipavan Sitaram, it means that they're calling out to the one who is the purifier to come and purify them. Why? Because they're not pure. And purity is the essence of cleanliness, in a way. So that one is the ocean of purity, and I'm in front of that one, right? Another quality that I like, or another attribute that I like, a title of God is Dilwala, the one who cares for the heart or comforts the heart, the one who resides also in the heart. You can translate it like that. So how clean does my heart have to be so that Dilwala can come and be with me? And how clean I have to be to sit on the throne of God's heart. These are the sorts of things that become important. If you've got let's say, a black shirt and there's a stain on it, you can't even see it. But if you've got a white shirt like this one, there's just one little stain on it. Everyone's aware of it. You know, what happened? Did your pen leak or something like that? So our attention goes to what's missing instead of what's there. So I have to dress myself up cleanly, internally, to meet God. I just can't go anywhere else. I have to sort of clean up. If I go to meet the president, I have to dress appropriately, right? So here I'm meeting the president of the universe. How should I be? How do I dress myself as a soul? I have to dress myself with self-respect. Another attribute that I like, another title I like, is something that it comes from maybe the Sikh tradition. I don't know exactly, but God is the laundryman. God is the Dobiwala. And he comes to clean the clothes. But what clothes? Not physical clothes, not even the body, which is the clothes of the soul, but he comes to clean out what we dress ourselves with internally. We can be dressed in arrogance, we can be dressed in greed, we can be dressed in attachment. So he comes to clean those clothes, those subtle clothes. So with what? With knowledge, jnana, with yoga, through that connection. Our founder father, Prajapita Brahma, used to make puns with words, and he would say we have to wash ourselves with Lux soap. And he would say Lux, it's not Lux, the one that Unilever produces, but the Lux soap. Lux means the aim. So if I have a higher aim, I can permanently be washing myself with that aim. It means to compare myself with that aim. So God is the Dobiwala. Also is the Vednath, the herbalist, the one who comes with a nature cure. And I like that idea because this week, in fact, I go to a homeopathic doctor. Somehow I respond better to homeopathic medicines than to allopathic medicines. And I had a fever, just came out of nowhere. And then I started having shakes. It seemed exactly like malaria because I've had malaria a couple of times. You start to tremble and get cold and cold and cold, and no matter how many blankets you put over yourself, you can't get warm, and then you go into sort of a delirious sleep, and you wake up with a fever. So I was exactly having that symptom, and at last I went to the doctor, and he gave me some pretty powerful homeopathic medicine, which sort of made me sweat out the whole thing over 24 hours. And other things came up, like I started to have herpes around the mouth. Some rash came on my foot. And when you're doing a cure like that, the idea is that the homeopathic or sometimes naturopathic medicine, herbal medicine brings out more symptoms, but it's like an exoneration, you're getting rid of it. So I like this idea that God is the herbalist and he gives me a real nature cure of the soul. Because, and as you start to have more and more meditation, you start to see all of the rubbish coming out as well, which is good because the rubbish is coming out to go away. So we shouldn't become dismayed if things start to go, start to go wrong. So this whole idea of looking after the houses, the world itself, the nature, the environment, looking after our homes, looking after the body, looking after the mind, especially looking after our highest home, clean out things, really understand the difference between the world of happiness and the world of sorrow, what sorrow really is and what real happiness is. Work on the sat, work on your connection with whatever is true so that you clean out your chit and you have the experience of Anand, which is the pure and cleaner and highest form of happiness. Work out through yoga the influence of yoga, as I said, brings out our most subtle sanskars and our most subtle behavior, and thereby making the Raja and the Temo sanskars character traits, the ones that are sort of very nervous and tense and overactive, which would be Raja, and the ones which are dense and slow and heavy and impure, which are the Tama ones, let through yoga bring out the best. And then so that we start to influence our lives with the best qualities that we have. And then remember that only God can purify us. Only He can give us a place in His heart, and He will only come into a heart that's clean anyway. So we can go to this Derby-wala and herbalist so that we can become the best that we can possibly be. So I think we can open for some questions now. Is that right?
Yes, sure. So thank you so much, Brother Ken. It was amazing. The way you put it up, the four houses starting from the nature, then the most important house is our house, the physical house of this body, then the physical body, which is also a house, and then finally the mind. And I was really taken away by whatever you were speaking in that Sanskrit or Hindi. The Sat Chit Anand, fantastic. The Sato Rajo Tamo. And you also mentioned beautifully the Patit Pavan, the purifier of all of us is really God. And I think this brings us to what you were trying to say, that cleanliness is next to godliness. So you were just trying to say about all that. You've explained that in detail. And also these three roles which the Supreme Being plays. The Dilwala, which is the comforter of the hearts. And as you mentioned in the Sikh tradition, the Dhobiwala, he tries to remove all the dirt from our mind. And lastly, the herbalist, doing nature cure for us. Well, there's a very interesting question which has come up in the chat box by one of our sisters, I guess. So she's asking, it's in relation to the things about the food which we eat from outside. So she says that I travel very often and I really can't take food from home for some reason. So when I take it outside, I eat outside, I don't feel that I am really sort of getting affected by that food. On the contrary, I feel that my mind is much more stronger than what I am eating, and I put those vibrations, beautiful vibrations, pure and clean, into the food. So could you explain this, that should we eat outside according to her then?
Let me say, if I go use that example that I said before, if I really want a subtle experience, if I really want the highest experience, I should be very concerned about the vibrations of the food that I eat. Of course, if I'm not concerned, then it really doesn't matter. But if you're a champion swimmer, then you take certain precautions. You won't eat certain things, and you'll only eat certain things, and you'll dedicate a certain amount of time every day to swimming. So if you want to be a champion meditator, I would not eat food prepared by others. If I want to be a middling meditator, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That's the thing, if you want a frank answer, that's what I say. It depends on what you want. It's not easy. I also travel a lot, or especially pre-pandemic. And often because I've been working in different corporations, often, and especially with the directors and the board, right, the CEO and the C-suite people, often they invite you out for lunch or sometimes dinner, but they already know that I will only eat salad, for example. I don't need to. I can manage, even if I have to. Like last 2 weeks ago, I had to go I had to conduct a retreat for all of the managers of a company, and it was about actually a retreat. It was like a live-in workshop in a hotel somewhere, and it was all about how to deal with the rising prices of gasoline, and especially since it's a food company, the rising prices of wheat and corn and things like that, especially with the war going on, the rising prices of freight. They were all completely, exasperated, depressed, fearful of the future. And so I had to show them what they could do together. They had the know-how, they had the skills, but they didn't have the right attitude. So what do I do there? I'm with them for 3 days. I enjoy those 3 days as a sort of a detox in a way, So there's plenty of salads, and there's plenty of fruits, and there's plenty of nuts, and there's plenty of things like that. If you're into yogurt, there's plenty of yogurt, granola, all of those things. I do no problem. But I don't eat food that's been cooked by others. At the very, in some cases, I've had to eat steamed veggies, but as you did, I sit in front of it and give what we call rishti anyway. But generally, I can manage quite easily. And pre-pandemic, I used to travel every month to a different country. Often it's on BK service, but many times in the past, I've gone all over the 4 or 5 continents. And I've enjoyed those periods when I had to stay in a hotel as a detox for me. So it's possible. It's the question of what you want. I'm not condemning you for what you've decided to do, but I wouldn't do it for me. That's the most honest I can be with you.
Yes, great. That's a beautiful answer. And there are many options, as you already have said. We are in a world where there are many more options, non-cooked food. So thank you. Um I'll just move on to the next question. It reminds me, as you mentioned about our founder father Brahma Baba. So it reminds me of our very sweet Dadi Janki, who was our previous administrative head till 2020 March. And the day is coming, 2 years, we'll be celebrating on 27th March, the next week. The question is, she used to constantly keep saying this in her teachings and in her proceedings as well, lectures. I'll say in Hindi first, Sachai, Safai, and Sadgi, which means truth is Sachai, Safai is cleanliness, which you said in detail about today, and the third one is Sadgi or simplicity. So, do you want to tell us how do we correlate simplicity with cleanliness?
Of course, as I said, um, I gave that example that I'm not interested in cricket as I used to be, for example, or football, because my interest has become more subtle internally, and I'm connecting with things at a higher level, let's say. I'm enjoying it. I'm not missing cricket matches, but as I become cleaner internally, my interests become more simple. There's a direct correlation. So I'm attracted to simpler things. I don't, one example, I don't like ostentation. It's too much exaggeration, too much, when someone dies who's been very important to us, I don't go in for all of the adulation and monuments and things like that. I remember the soul, and my homage is internal rather than through adulation or through ostentation and flowers and wreaths and all of that sort of stuff. No. Let me be simple and in that way also I have a smaller carbon footprint, as they say. I'm not using the resources unnecessarily. So I'm attracted to using the resources, whatever they are, in the most simple and logical way. If even to the example that I prefer to, because I studied food chemistry, I know a lot about whole thing of preparing food. I spent 7 years in a kitchen laboratory, so you could say that my training was almost as a chef, though it was a scientific chef, right? So I had to study about everything about food. So because of that, I avoid industrialized products. I prefer the things in, let's say, I'll do it myself. I won't buy tomato sauce. I'll buy the tomatoes and the other things and make it, that sort of thing. So knowledge helps me to keep simple. But because of my interest in having a better relationship with the environment and causing as less harm as possible to the environment, I will keep my taste as simple as possible. So it's because of knowledge, and it's because of the conviction that having a clean sheet, you could say, having a smaller impact on the environment, having a cleaner impact on the environment keeps my taste simple. Okay?
Great. I think you are invoking the questions, because there you go. There's another question about food. I'll just take it since it's all about that now. We already started speaking.
Everyone's interested in food, right?
Yeah, because I mean, as is the food, so is the mind. That's what we are taught everywhere in the Brahma Kumaris. So another sister is asking, I think you've covered it, but I'll just ask the question. How about bread or machine processed bottled food? Processed food made by machines, or even bread made in machines. No human vibrations, no human interaction. Can we eat those?
Yeah. I wouldn't. Again, but that's here. I'm saying what I know. Things that are industrialized. It's like I know exactly what's behind the whole thing, so I avoid it. So I'm not going to tell you, otherwise you'll be disappointed for the rest of your life with your favorite things. But I will avoid anything that has additives in it. You know, I'll just give one little story. I used to work in research and development in the food industry, right? And I asked my boss when we're adding things to preserve the food into the food, like a typical preservative would be sodium benzoate. It's a typical preservative. So I asked my boss, he goes into so many foods, and you look at the label, it doesn't say sodium benzoate, it has a sort of a code, right? I asked my boss, have they studied the impact of these additives over, say, 30 years on people's health before they approve them? They said, no. What do you mean? If it works and they accelerate shelf life tests, trials, then they pass it after a year or two of studies, but not 30 years of studies. And I'm absolutely certain that a lot of the illness in the world is due to decades of eating additives that are in our food stuff. There are like 400 typical additives in our food stuff. So I have my own personal grievance because I've seen it. Now, most people haven't. So industrialized food will not be considered tama, or be considered raja, especially if it's vegetables or bread or anything like that. But let me tell you, I prefer to grind my own ingredients, and I prefer to make my own bread. Most people won't have that option, but as I say, this is what I would do. But it's not bad in itself if you're just aware of the long-term consequences.
Right. Thank you so much. I'll just move on to another concept. I want you to explain this because this is a beautiful quote on cleanliness. I'll just read it out very slowly for the translators as well. Cleanliness is the hallmark of perfect standards, and the best quality inspector is the conscience. Shall I repeat it or?
No, it's okay.
Okay, fine.
You're right. If you, as I said, I worked in that industry, and I actually studied quality control, so I'm aware of that, and I'm aware also that if on a package or something it's written 99% pure, people won't buy it. It has to be 100% okay, total quality, etc., etc. But in the same way, we can choose what sort of things that we feed ourselves mentally, and that the quality inspector will be the intellect, actually. That I give an example. I went to the Argentinian Congress to meet 8 congressmen and women who were practicants of meditation. They practiced meditation, some sort of meditation, so they wanted to meet me. So I go into the Congress, and they've arranged a sort of a meeting in a room somewhere, and there's a small table. And because they do this with guests, the waiters start to arrive with water and biscuits and coffee and tea and all sorts of things. So a very small table, which was completely blank, nothing on it, suddenly started to fill up with glasses and cups and coffee and tea and biscuits and fruits. And there was no space for anything else, right? So I thought, this is a very good example. our mind in a clean and pure state is the table without anything on it. Then all of these things are added, right? and people, I don't think anyone ate any of the biscuits. Half of them had half a cup of coffee. That was it. Water mainly, but the table, which was clean, suddenly filled up with stuff. And there were 8 or 9 of us sitting around this table, and people were picking up things and, taking this, taking that, and mostly not taking anything. So it's a matter of choice. What I feel, first of all, what I put on the table in the first place, and secondly, what I consume from it. So the table is the mind. Some things come into it without us wanting, like some information arrives that comes onto the table of mind. I can also choose not to consume it. So I have 2 choices: what to put there, what to keep there, and what to consume. 3 choices: what to put in my mind, what to keep in my mind, and what to consume from it. So that quality inspector is the intellect making the choices. Okay? Hello.
Yeah, okay, fine. Sorry, there's a lot of voltage fluctuation at home in India, so my internet is working fine. I'm logging in from the mobile now again. Yeah, so fantastic. And in the interest of time, I'll just take the last question. As you mentioned about the mind, the intellect, and the sanskars. So we are taught here you have a clean mind, which you have mentioned in detail. Intellect also you've really taken a lot. It's the quality inspector. It needs to be clear. And the third is about divine sanskars. So I just wanted you to maybe in very short mention about how do we develop this purity and divinity in our sanskars?
Well, I did mention actually, this whole thing of Raja, Sattva, Raja, and Tamo is the mix of the sanskars, right? They're all mixed and intertwined and tangled up. So there are good sanskars there. There are pure sanskars around. There are experiences in my long past that were pure. Our first births on the earth were pure births. So those sanskars are still there, but they're underneath everything else. Then you've got these Raja sanskars, which are sort of driving us forward to do this and to do that, and the motivators, and to get this done and to be action conscious, you could say. They are like Raja sanskars. But there are those deep ones that keep us, connected with very impure things and interests and relationships, in the relationship. So instead of a relationship being subtle and light and easy and calm, it can become tense at a Raja level, become very impure at a Tamo level. So those sanskars are in us. And as I meditate, as I connect with God, who's permanently, eternally subtle, Sato, he's permanently Sato. As I make that connection, that draws from my sanskars to the surface at my conscious level, whatever is Sato in me. And as long as I keep that connection, those Sato sanskars are more available and more reachable. And the other ones become pushed to the bottom, where they become irrelevant. So if I don't have that connection, if I'm only connected with the things of the world, reading the news, getting worried about all of the situation in Europe and getting worried about the pandemic and all of that sort of thing, I'm plugged into the anxiety of the population, then that will bring out that sort of sanskar, which is also in me. So what do I want? Do I want the highest ones? So I have to connect with God. Do I want the middling ones and the lowest one? Let me connect with the world. That's the choice. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Brother Ken, so much for bearing with the questions and giving your time almost 20 minutes for the same. Thank you. So I would now request Sister Claudia to please propose the vote of thanks. For some reason, Dr. Mehta again had some technical issues.
So
He wasn't able.
we have some meditation.
So maybe you want to do meditation first. Okay, so we can go then.
Yeah, at least a few minutes.
Yeah. Anu sister, if you can just share the music also in the background because my system is from the mobile. Yeah.
So everyone, I mean, I did describe it a couple of times, the process. And even as I was in that state of consciousness, I was trying to share the experience, not just the words. So let's just relax, leave the things aside, leave your bodily concerns, leave your roles, whatever they are, leave your story behind, just become the soul. I am the spiritual being having gone through all of that. I am the soul. I am the life in this body, the conscious life. And in front of me, immediately, I remember the one who is the source. I'm not in this dimension anymore. I'm in that subtle dimension. And the one in front of me is the spiritual sun, just radiating power and beauty and truth. This one is the purifier. So I sit there open. And just that recognition that I'm in front of the one who is the purifier, I'm in front of the one who loves me more than anyone else. I am in front of the one who does not see anything bad in me, just sees my own truth and my own beauty. Just as I just see him as truth and beauty, he sees me like that. So that pure connection draws out from me my best qualities. And I start to feel good, true, easy, light, powerful. Then I can keep this connection, I can make this connection whenever I want. This is my friend, my supreme friend. But at the same time, the ocean of purity, just radiating such powerful waves of purity. And of course, that affects me. Just keep this idea, keep this remembrance, rather. Just stay in silence, just enjoying the connection. Soul and God, nothing else, no one else. just keep this idea. I am one point of conscious energy, like a dot. The other one is also a point of conscious energy, yet the supreme one. Just another point, a dot. So it's two dots and the line in between that connects them. And that's it. This is the connection that we call yoga, the union between the soul and God. This connection is like an axle between 2 points, between 2 wheels. And as I move around in the world, I make sure the axle is not broken. Okay, with the comfort of knowing that I can return to this connection whenever I want, let's slowly return to the normality of our places. Everyone opening their eyes more. So that's what we call also Om Shanti. I am peace. Om Shanti. Okay. Claudia?
I'd like to thank you again. It was very nice to hear you saying, for us to have an idea how much clean I am, that means I don't favor anyone. Everyone is okay. It's a kind of a good for us to check ourselves. And also all your stories about your own life, all your practical life is also very good for us to remember. Another point I quite like also was about simplicity. Everything is so simple. The soul is simple. God is also simple, just a point. And food also should be simple. And everything in life should be simple. So then we will become very close to our truth and we'll be happy. So nice the way how you put everything together. So I'm very thanks to you for being with us today and show us the path to be clean. Thank you.
Okay, Claudia, thanks so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And a quick announcements by Sister Anu. Just a few minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Manoj brother. So quickly we'll announce the upcoming programs, and definitely beautiful thanks to Brother Ken. So beautifully explaining the cleanliness. As we always do, after a week, we have our experiential workshop, values workshop on cleanliness, where we will have exercises to strengthen this virtue of cleanliness. And we'll have Sister Sona from Abu Dhabi, UAE, to give us take through another insightful talk on cleanliness. So it's on 26th of March, Saturday, evening 7:30 p.m. India time, and that's 7 a.m. West Coast, Canada and USA time. And our next session for Values for Life series is episode 35 on faith. That's today. And for that, we'll have Sister Mira from Malaysia. She's the director and spiritual ambassador for Brahma Kumaris Malaysia. And to accommodate the Malaysia time, the time is slightly different. Please note, it's happening on Sunday, 3rd of April, morning, 9 a.m. for India time. So that makes it Saturday, 2nd of April, evening, 8:30 p.m. for West Coast Canada. So East Coast people may not be able to join, but we have our videos later on. And for our monthly series of talks on the spiritual powers we hold within, we had the talk on power to tolerate, that is Shehen Sakti, with Sister Luciana. She will be joining from Brazil. She's the national coordinator of Brahma Kumaris in Brazil. So it's happening on Sunday, 10th of April, evening 8:30 p.m. for India time. That makes it 8 a.m. for West Coast and 12 p.m. for Brazil. So there are so many people joined today from Brazil. So we welcome you to join us. Please note the date. It's on 10th of April, Sunday morning, 8 a.m. for West Coast time. You can get all the information about these programs and other videos on our website, vyasa.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca and our YouTube channels. Thank you everyone for your attention.
Thanks, Anubin.
So thank you so much, Brother Ken, for your presence and invaluable
Okay.
sharings. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, see you all.
See you.
Thanks for the translators.